I just wanted to talk to you really quickly about your quarterback and Bryce Young. Obviously, you guys were able to, start off with him, and then you changed quarterbacks. But the same question that I asked your GM is, what did you see in him when he came back that kind of like either resonated with you or something that you felt like where he benefited from the adversity that you were able to translate?
I just saw a lot of toughness out of Bryce, mental toughness, emotional toughness, just being able to take the challenge and say, okay, what can I do about it? Is just attack my work, and he didn't change. He was consistent all the way through, just kind of waiting for his opportunity, and then I felt the shift when he got back out there at Denver. We didn't win the game. We scored a touchdown on the opening drive. I could feel a different energy. This guy was serious, and he was telling me, he was showing all of us as a team, he was saying, look, this is my team. I'm going to lead us to where we need to go. And then we just saw weekly growth as a group offensively, and for Bryce, and for me, just learning Bryce, continuing to give him things that he loved, and I just watched him just really, really own it and take steps from a leadership standpoint.
I have to admit, I was a little concerned, right when Andy Dalton took over, and I remember you guys had that first win, and I was thinking about, especially when you're young too, how is he handling when the team is celebrating and then something else is happening? It's almost like with the Jets when, Aaron Rodgers went down and, or what have you, and now the team is having some success, but he's out, or at the time, initially last year. But what did you see even in the midst of the times where initially you guys were writing that surf with Andy in terms of how Bryce was handling that?
Yeah, all I saw was support from Bryce. I think that speaks to their relationship that they kind of worked out. They knew this wasn't some personal inner competition. This was about, all right, coach decided to go with Andy, and he just had his back. It's a big reason why we re-signed Andy, because it spoke volumes about their relationship, and the support and the love that they had for each other in that QB room, So that's how he handled it, and he didn't change, and he continued to talk to guys, work the locker room at the half, work the sideline during games, and stayed engaged because this is his team. These are his teammates, and so it spoke volumes about Bryce.
Now, I know that Jonathan Allen is obviously with another team, but he has been given permission to seek a trade. My question is, how do you balance potentially a talent that has that first-round pedigree with a talent also that didn't play all season because they have, an injury, whether it's him or a talent like him that you potentially would be evaluating in the trade market? How would you evaluate that as a coach?
Yeah, I think you just have to go on their body of work. You got to consider, the nature of the injury and do all your research on what does this look like going forward, So I think those are all important things, and he's such a great player too. I would imagine there's going to be a great market for him,
What's your thought level on whether a player like Mason Graham can fall to you guys?
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, he's a dynamic player,
Tell us how you really feel.
There's a bunch of guys where we're sitting at 8, we're going to end up with a great player in some way, shape, or form, and however it falls to us, we'll be ready for that. We'll be prepared. And Mason Graham certainly, his big plays are amazing, and the versatility where he can stand up, play from a 2-point stance, he can be in a 3-point, playing in different areas. So he's just one of a bunch of players that can really help the Panthers, help any of the other 31 teams as well.
And last question. I know obviously Dan has his category in terms of what he does as general manager, but how do you also as coach have a conversation with the player like Jaycee Horn when it comes to trying to really get him to understand the nuances that are out there when you're trying to quantify what you're going to do contractually, particularly when you have an example out there like Patrick Surtain, who's got his 4-year 96, but your player didn't play as much as him, but Surtain was drafted one, spot back. So how do you even have that conversation with him in terms of demonstrating value, but, these are the things that we also potentially need you to understand?
As the head coach, so all the contract conversations and all that, they, Dan Brandt handle all those. But as the head coach, I just want to make sure that we have a vision for where we're going, that JC and I have those conversations, because I want him to know I'm committed to doing whatever it takes to helping the Panthers take the next step in 2025 and beyond, and just wanted to see this dream happen together, and so my job is to just let him know that we're going to do this together, and it's going to take all of us, and to sell that part to him, because there's a point of it where Yeah, money's going to talk, but I also want him to know, man, we're going to do everything in our power to maximize this team right now.
Well, we definitely appreciate your time and stopping by, so thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you. All right, so we're standing by with Panthers General Manager Dan Morgan. Thanks for joining me on the exhibit.
Thanks for having me.
So one thing I really wanted to know is what you saw in terms of the difference in the evolution from Bryce Young before when he was the starter, then you guys went away from Andy Dalton, and then he came back at 1-6. What was the difference in kind of some of the adaptations or evolutions that you saw in him?
Yeah, I think Bryce got to kind of sit back and observe Andy, run the huddle, run the team, and lead the guys in the huddle. So for him to sit back those couple weeks, couple weeks or more that, he was the backup, I just think he really got to, look within himself and kind of take everything in and calm down a little bit. And I think his mindset when he came back was just totally different. And yeah, so the competitor, like you saw the guy from Alabama, that we watched on tape. So it was just so cool to see, and I'm just super excited about him moving forward and his progression.
Isn't that interesting how sometimes it does take a bout of adversity or a change in environment to actually unlock something in someone's DNA or just their traits? I mean, sometimes it's like a player, even from the Jets, going to, being with the Seahawks or what have you, and then, or Baker Mayfield changing, and then, something changes. I just, anyways, think that's interesting. Obviously, a bit of news started off the day today as far as the availability, potentially, of Jonathan Allen from the Commanders. Interior defensive lineman is something that you guys potentially are looking for. What's your reaction to his not only availability, but I also want to know how you rank someone who was a first-round pedigree, but also missed time with that pec injury?
I think obviously guys become available all the time. He's on their team now, so I really can't discuss him. But D-line definitely will be an emphasis for us, whether in free agency or the draft. We're gonna address our front, make our front stronger, and it really starts here and in free agency.
So let's take out the name, pretend I didn't even say Jonathan Allen. Just overall as a GM, when you're potentially looking at a talent that's available via trade, how do you weigh first round pedigree or just overall elite skill set versus also when that a particular talent in general has maybe some nicks and knacks that they're dealing with injury-wise?
Yeah, and I think it goes even deeper than that. I think, first and foremost, you're looking at the salary, how much they're making. Then you're also looking at from a compensation standpoint. So, I think that's the first two things that you look at in any type of trade talk. So if the salary's too much, if the compensation's too much, then it's really going to, either take you out of it or, or you'll wait for that team to make a cut.
Now, obviously, you guys were able to get Hubbard done last September, what have you.
Yep.
Where do things stand with Jaycee Horn, not just in terms of talks, but just relative to the context of the contract that Patrick Surtain was able to get, knowing that he was one pick back and also didn't play as much?
Yeah, it's going good, and I think we want to reward our guys, our draft picks, and that's the philosophy that we have. So obviously you saw us do it with Derek Brown, you saw us do it with Chuba Hubbard, JC's next in line. So talks are progressing. Brant Tillis, our cap guy, does a great job, and I have all the trust in him.
And last question, especially when you talk about where you guys are at the draft at 8, right?
Yeah.
How do you, as a GM, balance getting your guys or whoever your targets are versus here guys that can upgrade us, in comparison to the guys that we have, so they represent an upgrade versus more bodies?
Yeah, you never want to just draft bodies. You always want to draft the best available players, and that's what we'll do. We'll do that with the 8th pick all the way down to our 7th round pick. We're just going to draft the best players on our board. We're going to set the board accordingly, and we're going to follow it. So we're going to have that disciplined approach.
Well, I definitely appreciate your time for stopping by, and good luck this season, and glad to see that you guys were able to make some, progress towards the end of the season and hopefully build off of that.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Thank you.